The letter arrived on a Tuesday, typewritten and unsigned, claiming responsibility for a murder that hadn't been reported yet. The San Francisco Chronicle's newsroom buzzed with the usual chaos of deadline pressure and ringing phones. But when the editor opened that particular envelope, the room seemed to hold its breath. Inside was a confession, written in the measured tone of someone discussing the weather, detailing exactly how David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen had died on a quiet road in Vallejo just 3 days earlier. At the bottom, in place of a signature, was a symbol that would haunt a generation: a circle bisected by a cross. The Zodiac Killer had introduced himself. But before we dive into the darkness, let's talk about what the Bay Area was like in the late 1960s. This was the epicenter of the counterculture movement. Flower power, free love, the summer of love still fresh in everyone's memory. San Francisco sparkled with possibility. Young people flocked here from across the country, drawn by the promise of something different, something revolutionary. David Faraday was 17, a straight-A student who planned to study electrical engineering. Betty Lou Jensen was 16, popular at school, the kind of girl who lit up every room she entered. On December 20th, 1968, they went on what should have been a perfectly ordinary first date. They drove to a secluded lover's lane overlooking the Vallejo Hills, the same spot where dozens of other young couples had shared innocent kisses under the stars. Instead, they became the first confirmed victims of America's most notorious unsolved case. Someone approached their car that night, someone methodical, someone who would later write about the encounter with chilling detachment, describing how he ordered them out of the vehicle, how David tried to protect Betty Lou, how neither of them made it more than a few feet before the bullets found them. The killer left them there in the gravel and drove away, vanishing into the California night like fog rolling off the bay. But here's the thing. He wasn't done talking about it. 7 months later, Darlene Ferrin and Michael Maggio were parked at Blue Rock Springs Park when a car pulled up beside them. The driver got out, walked to their window, and opened fire without saying a word. Darlene died instantly. Michael survived, though barely, and his description of the killer was frustratingly vague. A stocky white man, maybe 30, calm as death itself. 40 minutes after the shooting, the Vallejo Police Department received a call. The voice was measured, emotionless, almost robotic. "I want to report a murder," the caller said. "If you will go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway, you will find kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye." The line went dead. Now sit with that for a second. This wasn't a crime of passion or a robbery gone wrong. This was someone who killed for sport, who wanted credit, who craved the attention like a drug. The letters started arriving at newspapers across the Bay Area. Not just confessions, but taunts, coded messages, demands that his words be printed on the front page or he would kill again. Each letter was signed with that same symbol, and he gave himself a name, Zodiac. The cryptograms were his masterpiece of psychological warfare. 3 newspapers each received a portion of a 408-character cipher, along with a letter that read, "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest, because man is the most dangerous animal of all." The cipher was cracked within a week by a high school teacher and his wife, working at their kitchen table with pencils and graph paper. But the message it revealed was somehow worse than the mystery itself. It rambled about slaves in the afterlife, about how killing gave him power over death itself. At the end, it promised, "I will not give you my name because you will try to slow down or stop my collecting of slaves for my afterlife." The killing continued. On September 27, 1969, at Lake Berryessa, Cecilia Shepard and Brian Hartnell were enjoying a quiet afternoon picnic when a figure emerged from the trees. He wore a black executioner's hood with clip-on sunglasses and carried a gun. The Zodiac symbol was painted on his chest in white. "I want your money and your car keys," he said, his voice muffled by the hood. But money was never the point. He tied them up with clothesline he'd brought with him, then pulled out a knife. Cecilia died from her wounds. Brian survived, and his description of those terrifying minutes, the killer's strange calm, the way he seemed almost bored by the violence, painted a picture of someone truly inhuman. 2 weeks later, taxi driver Paul Stine was shot in the head in downtown San Francisco. The killer tore off a piece of Paul's blood-stained shirt and mailed it to the newspapers as proof. In the letter that accompanied it, he wrote, "I am the murderer of the taxi driver over by Washington State and Maple Street last night. To prove this, here is a bloody piece of his shirt. I am the same man who did in the people in the North Bay area." The investigation consumed the lives of everyone who touched it. Detective Dave Toshke became obsessed, working the case for years, following thousands of leads that led nowhere. The FBI joined the hunt. Amateur sleuths dissected every letter, every cipher, every clue. Arthur Lee Allen emerged as a prime suspect, a convicted child molester who lived in Vallejo, who wore a Zodiac brand watch, who seemed to fit the profile perfectly. But the evidence never quite clicked into place. DNA tests years later would exclude him entirely. The letters kept coming through 1974, growing stranger and more erratic. Claims of dozens more murders, movie reviews, rants about everything from politics to the weather. Then suddenly, silence. Whether the Zodiac died, was imprisoned for another crime, or simply lost interest in the game, we'll never know. 5 confirmed dead, 2 survivors who lived with nightmares for the rest of their lives. 37 letters to newspapers, each one a calculated psychological assault on an entire community. The Zodiac case spawned books, movies, documentaries, and an army of amateur detectives who still gather online to debate theories and analyze clues. In 2020, a team of codebreakers finally solved the 340-character cipher that had stumped experts for 51 years. The message, when decoded, was just more of his rambling about death and the afterlife, ending with the taunt, "I am not afraid because I know that my new life will be an easy one, in paradise death." Even solved, it told us nothing we didn't already know. The Zodiac was never about the puzzles or the codes or the elaborate games. He was about fear, about proving that anyone, anywhere, could become a victim of random violence, about showing that some monsters wear human faces and walk among us undetected. David Faraday would have been 73 now. Betty Lou Jensen, 72. Darlene Ferrin would have been 77. Cecilia Shepard, 75. Paul Stine would have been 81. Their families still wait for answers that may never come. Somewhere out there, the truth sleeps in an unmarked grave or sits forgotten in a nursing home. The case files remain open. The phone tips still trickle in, and the symbol that terrorized Northern California continues to appear in documentaries and on amateur sleuth websites, a reminder that some mysteries refuse to die. The last confirmed Zodiac letter arrived in 1974, but the fear he created? Honey, that's still out there, floating through the Bay Area fog, whispering the same question that's haunted investigators for more than 50 years. What if he's still watching?